All right. TGIF. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm the host here this morning. And we're going to capture our last comment here, or our last segment here this morning, which is immigration and how the GOP is hellbent, their words, on treason. Treason's my word. Hellbent on getting this done is their phrase. So here's the deal. We've made it very clear, and America, by the way, has made it very abundantly clear to all of these politicians that the concerns of America are not illegal immigrants' rights, the rights they don't have, the rights they have claimed exist, but in fact do not. What we do have is polls that show that only 3% of Americans think immigration is important. Now, immigration may be important, and then, by the way, that includes all the legal immigrants that were polled in that study as well. Now, illegal immigrants are probably the other way around. Probably 90% of all the people here that are illegal care. The other 10% are criminals and say, don't really matter anyway, I'll just shoot it out when they come to me. And that's the truth. That's the truth. The 90% who care about immigration are those who are seeking to get something for free, access to this nation, which they violated the law to obtain. The other 10% are the criminal element. Now, I'm talking about of the immigrants here, and don't tell me that there's not a criminal element beyond the criminality of violating our border. Don't tell me that a lot of these people who came in were not people who smuggled drugs in a knapsack as payment to get over the border. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a criminal element, and it's a criminal act beyond that of just violating the border. It's bad enough that you broke the law, climbed over our border, and said, I'm here, and there ain't a damn thing you can do about it. But when you're going to tie that together with importing drugs to be sold in our country as payment to the coyote to get you over the border, now that's a secondary act, isn't it? That's like robbing the bank is bad enough, but if you shoot the guard, now we've got a real problem. But nobody in Congress wants to look at that from that perspective, do they? No, they don't. Only 3% of America thinks this is important. But from Congress's perspective, from the multinationals' perspective, where they believe that immigration is an absolute minimal requirement in order for them to push down the wages of other actively nationally born Americans. That's the goal, ladies and gentlemen. It has nothing to do with anything else. Their claim is we can't find enough qualified, educated help with college degrees. BS. The universities are full, pumping out massive numbers, record numbers of young people who have degrees and no jobs. Now, I'm not suggesting that we cannot use foreign workers. We certainly can. We can use foreign workers, and we can keep foreign workers here who come to this country, get themselves an education, become highly skilled, passed their studies and did an excellent job at that, and are now skilled and qualified to work in this country. Because they'll have some skin in the game. They'll have some interest. They'll be a participating partner in the country. But if you're sitting here telling me that because we let them in, which is what every other country does, that we also have to let in everyone else who wants, including the criminal element, whatever that percentage may be. And I don't care if you argue with me about what it is, how high or how low, doesn't matter. There is a criminal element. No one can deny that. And so if what we're supposed to do is allow the leeches and the criminal element to come over here, because we are allowing people who actually are qualified and bring something to the mix that benefit the fabric of America, then you're insane. But you see, mega internationals, the multinational corporations, these huge megalithic companies that and all these high-tech companies that want and all the low-tech companies that want to push down the hourly rate that they have to pay for labor. That's what this is about. Because here's the deal. An American-born student gets through college and he expects to get a job for $50,000 the minute he steps out of the college. Why? Because American brats are spoiled, rotten punks. That's the truth. You can disagree with me about the reality of that, but I got to tell you, if you sit down and you look at our youth today, it's shameful. They believe they're entitled. It's an entitlement mentality that we have injected into our society. And it's been done willfully by government because it breeds dependence. And dependence breeds this entitlement mentality of I have a right to a job. I have a right to a percentage of your profits because I went to college and I got hired here, and it doesn't matter that you put up all the risk and put all the time and the money and the effort and stayed away from your family for all those years while the company was being created. I'm entitled to a piece of it. And American employers don't want to put up with that nonsensical crap. So what do? Well, we're going to go out and get a bunch of illegals who would be happy to do the same job for $35,000 a year. Hello? And the House Republicans are about to sell you down the river again. Boehner tells attendees at a fundraiser he's, quote, hell-bent on getting this done. Really? 3% of America, both Democrat and Republican, think that this is important. The vast majority of Americans do not want amnesty, and you, Mr. John Boehner, are hell-bent on getting it done anyway. Your words, not mine. Ladies and gentlemen, if this is a representative Republican form of government, then Mr. John Boehner has just disqualified himself to be a representative of Ohio or the United States of America. Speaker John Boehner and other senior House Republicans are telling donors, donors. Let's not forget about them. That's the number one group, right? Not industry groups, not concerned electorate, not citizens who live in his state, but donors and industry groups. Because the entire damn mess of them are for sale, bought and sold and traded. They are telling donors and industry groups that they aim to pass immigration legislation this year, despite the reluctance of many Republicans to tackle the divisive issue before the November elections. Folks, no one can sit here and tell me or you, because we have, this is like the 5-year-old who's standing in front of you, swearing he doesn't have anything behind his back. His arms are behind his back, and you're standing up there, and he's looking up at you, and he's saying, "But Mommy, I don't have anything behind my back." And he's got chocolate all over his mouth. He's got cookie crumbs stuck to the corners of his mouth, and he's holding 3 other cookies that you can see. And he says, "Mommy, I don't have any cookies." If you're fooled by Republicans who tell you, we're really not looking to get immigration passed, when what they really mean is, we got to get through this election cycle, and if we really tell you what we're going to do, we know that you drag us out, tar and feather us, and likely hang us from the nearest yardarm. Many lawmakers and activists have assumed the issue was off the table in an election year. But Mr. Boehner said at a Las Vegas fundraiser last month that he was, quote, hell-bent on getting this done this year. Now, there were 2 people who said that in the room. This article is in the Wall Street Journal. A spokesman for Mr. Boehner didn't dispute the account, but said no action is possible until President Barack Obama, proves himself a trustworthy partner to Republicans. Really? Do you understand listen to the language that's used. A trustworthy partner to Republicans? You mean to tell me that the only thing that matters here is the Democrats, the Republicans, and whatever administration president at the or whatever administration is in power at the time. I mean, the rest of us don't really matter. It's not about the American people. It's not about jobs. It's not about whether or not it's good for the nation. It's really only about whether or not the trustworthy partners can go back to business as usual. Folks, if you don't smell the treason on that like dog poop on your shoe, Bob Goodlatte, the representative from Republican and the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, delivered an upbeat message about legislative prospects during a recent trip to Silicon Valley. Now, notice where he's going. He's going to the tech capital, and he's going over there, and he's going to tell them what they want to hear. Then he's going to come home to his constituents, and he's going to say, yeah, you know, this illegal immigration issue is really challenging, and we've got to walk very carefully here. What a bunch of... I'm telling you, every single last traitor needs to be removed from office. Fire every single last one of them. Not a single man standing. Not a single woman standing. If they're in office, remove them. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what 2014's call to action should be. Fire them all. 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 Democrats and Republicans should vote no. None of the above. If it is not there on the ballot, then tear the ballots up and protest. Or vote for any candidate that is not a Republican and a Democrat. I don't care if they're the Green Party. I'd take a Green Party candidate put into this position just to get rid of this trash, to flush the toilet of Washington. Because it is an embarrassment. It is laden with treason. It's like a cancer that's growing by the moment. This isn't a tumor that started out as the size of a pea and grew to the size of a tennis ball over decades. This is of late. This is a festering wound, a festering tumor that started out the size of a basketball and has now grown to be the size of a medicine ball. And the nation is so disfigured by it that we, the United States of America, look like the Elephant Man. Goodlatte, chairman of the House, on a recent trip to Silicon Valley, said Carl Giardino, chief executive of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, he said Mr. Goodlatte told him action in 2014 was entirely possible, likely in the form of votes this summer, on 5 to 7 immigration bills. Stop right there. Why would you pass 5 to 7 immigration bills when Congress's legacy is unintended consequences of stupidity and actions that are representative only of those who pay them? Why don't we pass one? One. You know what that one is? Seal the border and tighter than a gnat's ass. There you go. Nothing happens until that's done. Nothing. And in addition to that, every illegal in the nation has to come forth and register within a 1-year period and say, here I am, my name is, and I crossed the border illegally. Anyone who doesn't after that period is ejected. Period. End of argument. End of story. Does that sound harsh? Does that sound like we're going to be separating and splitting families? Nobody told you to come here. If I go in and I rob bread from a grocery store to feed my family, and I am convicted of that, I will be incarcerated, and my family will be divided. They will be split. And I cannot stand there and say to the judge, Your Honor, I did it because I had to feed my kid. He doesn't care. But we're supposed to. We're supposed to grant you amnesty. For what? The only legislation that needs to pass is this. The border must be sealed and be proven to be sealed independently, verifiably, by third parties who are not on the government payroll, who have no role and function within government at all. A committee, if you will, made up of ombudsmen from the citizens, the general population, that academia, not the academia of the university, but people who understand the border issue. I don't want Congress to tell me it's sealed because they lie to me if their mouth is open. I don't want DHS to tell me that the border is sealed because I wouldn't trust DHS to walk my dog. I don't want ICE to tell me that the border is sealed because they have a conflict of interest. They're involved in it. I want someone who has no conflict of interest to tell me this border is locked down tight. We've got a 300-yard dead man's no man's zone. And it's lined so that anyone coming over that fence empirically will not make it to the other side. That's what we did to separate East and West. That's what we have over in North Korea that we've actively guarded for the last 60 years, and it worked adequately. Why would we do less to guard our own border than we would do in Korea? It's not that important an issue, you say, that we should take lives, that lives should be lost by someone attempting to cross a no man's zone. Says who? Are you going to tell that to the American who is now sitting there paying their mortgage and avoiding medicine? Are you telling that to the family who is sitting there and their children come to them and say, "Mommy, I'm hungry," because mom can't get any work? These are jobs Americans don't want. Bunk! That's a lie. And it's time America stepped up and demanded that lie stop. The truth is, this immigration policy, this amnesty attempt, these unconstitutional, treasonous, impeachable orders from this particular monster sitting as the President of the United States of America are an act of treason against this nation in favor of a potential electorate. No greater conflict of interest could exist, nor could any greater conflict of interest be even apparent. You don't have to be a political science major to see where this is going, why this is being manufactured, why it's a crisis. It's only a crisis to people who stand to benefit from it. If that's all that we can count on from our government, that it's only a crisis and it'll only be dealt with either if you are the highest bidder or you promise something to them. The highest bidder in votes or money makes no difference. But the entire Congress is completely out of order. There is nothing salvageable about it. There is nothing salvageable about them. They have no socially redeeming value, no politically redeeming value. They have nothing to offer us other than anger, other than hatred, other than abuse, other than theft, other than... Look, ladies and gentlemen, these are the robber barons of yesteryear. They are elitists and statists who believe that you are here to serve them. Not a single one should be left standing. Not a single one. They must be removed, excised from our body, like a cancerous tumor that is sucking the very life from our nation. There is no redeeming value for anyone up there now. I know that this philosophy is not going to be broadly accepted until the blood begins to run in the streets, engendered, created, promoted, and ultimately ordered by these same elitists and tyrants that you choose to ignore. But somewhere, sometime down the road, whether near or slightly further into the future, this nation will come to the realization that while we had the opportunity to put the rabid dog to sleep, we didn't take it. And now our children are dying, being bitten by a rabid dog. That rabid dog has Washington, D.C. as its name. They're not interested in what's good for the country. They're only interested in what's good for them. They serve their parties. They serve each other. They serve their own self-interest. And you be damned. They only contact you when they're interested in getting your vote. And the rest of the time, they couldn't care less. This is cancerous, and it is a corruption that's the hallmark of this entire government. Democrats and Republicans. They are equally cancerous. I'm trying to think of the right word. When you have a tumor, it's benign, or it's I can't think of the word. You see, here's the problem. You need to understand what this is. This is a cancer that is growing inside of us. And it's now misshapen us so severely that we look like, our republic looks like the Elephant Man. Bent out of shape, deformed, ugly. Not that the Elephant Man was ugly on the inside, but his outside was so misformed that many couldn't look upon it. That's what's happening to our country. We are the good inside of the Elephant Man. But what's happening to us is beyond even our own wildest nightmare. This disease has so deeply metastasized itself into the very core organs of our body that we can no longer expect a solution by the chemotherapy of elections. Any more than the Elephant Man could have expected that a salve rubbed on his forehead would make that giant lump go down. We can't dislodge it. We can't remove this cancer without excising the actual corrupted tumors, the cells that are causing the disease to grow. The Republican and the Democratic parties and the federal agencies that have taken over all of the nourishment of our country, they are the blastomas, the cancerous lumps of our nation. You know, it's beyond salvage, folks. The only way that we'll ever save this nation is to remove every last vestige of it that is in Washington, D.C., making sure that everyone in our state capitals sees that example, and if they don't, then they're next on the list. They must be removed, folks, because there is no other salvage for this. There's no other thing that we can do to make this right. We've towed the line. We've followed the mandates. We've done everything that we could do legally, that we could do ethically, that we could do morally, to try to allow these people to do right by us. And still, they commit heinous acts of treason against us and against this nation. When the dog becomes so rabid that it's endangering the actual family, that it's endangering the health and the welfare and the life of your children, and no matter how much you love that dog, it has to be put down. You are the master. This government has become a rabid dog. That which we loved, that which we cherished, has become the greatest danger. Exigent, immediate, urgent. You've been listening to America's Voice now. You You can find us on the web at americasvoicenow.org. Time's running out, folks. Choice is up to you. You better pick a side. God bless you. Have a good weekend.